Hey, what's up guys? Welcome to another exciting design tutorial with UXmate. In this video, we are going to explore one of the famous design processes, double diamond. Well, if you haven't subscribed the channel yet, then go ahead and hit that red subscribe button and make sure you hit the bell icon as well. That will keep you updated with all our future uploads. So yeah, let's jump into the double diamond design process. In this video, we would be exploring the different aspects of this process, what are the different steps in this process, and why this process called as a double diamond design process. So as usually this design process is used in the product development lifecycle, or you can say designing the user experience or defining the solutions for a problem statement. We can use this design process. So how do we use this process? We generally start with research. Okay, so first important pillar of this process is research. So when we start with research, we should not restrict ourselves with one source of research or one path of research. So we should always try to start with hundreds of different research paths and collect as much as input we can. And basically research should not be a restricted one. Having more and more inputs will always help us to solve the problem end to end, and we literally never know which research data is going to be useful in which project in our future. So not necessarily it is like if you're doing research for one particular problem statement, then you cannot reuse the same research for other problems as well. Definitely you can reuse the same research data for other problems as well, as long as it is valid for your problem statement and for your solution. So as I said, like, let's start with the research and then go in hundreds of different directions. Try to collect data from users, try to collect data from past experiences, try to collect data from different aspects around the product which you are building, around the solution which you are trying to find, around the problem statement which you have. So once you research on all possible areas, on all possible directions, you would be creating hundreds of, or you'd be collecting hundreds, like you'd be having data with hundreds of research paths. Now what you have to do, the second step here is analyze. So what we have to do, we have to analyze the research which we have did so far. So we need to make sure, okay, whatever research we did is valid, and we need to figure out a single source of information or single source of starting point out of these research points. So when it comes to analysis, it is more a focus oriented process. We can take each research input and analyze it from various aspects. So for example, these are different research aspects, and then we will be taking down them to a single source of information. So how you can relate this point with a real time use case? Let's say you are in Delhi, okay, and you have to travel to Pune, right? So to travel from Delhi to Pune, there are lots of different ways, right? You can go with a train, you can go with a bus, you can go with your private vehicle, maybe it could be a bike, it could be a car, you can go with a shared taxi, you can go with a flight. Okay, so there are different ways to travel, and you cannot determine, okay, this is the right way or this is the wrong way until and unless you figure out why I am traveling, from where I am traveling, where do I have to reach, and by what time I have to reach my destination. So let's say if I'm saying you, okay, you have to travel from Delhi on 1st of April and you have to reach Pune on, let's say, 3rd of April. So you have like plenty of time. You can choose any of the route. You can go by train, you can go by bus, you can go by like by road or by train. You can choose any of the traveling mode. But if I'm saying, okay, you have to leave on 1st of April and you have to reach Pune, let's say like you start your journey in the morning and then reach Pune by 1 o'clock or like 2 o'clock, whatever it is. So in that case, you cannot go with train or a bus, because you have to travel a large amount of distance in a lesser amount of time. So what you would be preferring? You would be preferring a flight. So if you see all our options, all our research which we did, how to travel from Delhi to Pune, is not incorrect or wrong. It is just not valid for the particular situation or the particular scenario which I am having right now. So what I'd be doing? I'd be eliminating all of these different research options, and I'd be keeping only one out of these. Right, so the same way which we did here. So we started with a lot of research paths, and then we narrow it down to a single source of information, or a single starting point. So basically, you can take each research input and analyze it from various aspects and filter it out on a single valid problem. Analysis should start with many points and end to one. Okay, so that is starting from many and ending in one. Now let's say what is third step in this? Third step is your ideate. Now when you have one point of information, a single source of information, what you have to do? You have to take this information and you have to generate a lots of ideas around your single source of input. So basically, it is kind of a innovative artistic process. Generating ideas is an interesting and artistic process where we can basically we need quantity here. We don't need quality on the day one, because we need to explore as many as possible options. We should not stop on 5 or 10 ideas. We should do hundreds of ideas. So we should figure out hundreds of different ways to solve a particular problem, and that's going to help us to provide a precise solution. Because how it's going to help us? When you figure out hundreds of ideas from one single source of information, you will explore all different possible directions. So you're not stopping on one particular idea. You're not locking yourself on, let's say, okay, no, I would be just traveling by train. No, you're not locking yourself on train. What you are doing, you are expanding your horizon, and you are trying to gather, or you are trying to perceive all different possibilities. Okay, so when you are trying to explore all different possibilities using ideations, you would be having a lot of information to work on. So you would be having a lot of ideas, like at least hundreds of ideas to solve one particular problem. And then if you have multiple ideas, then it becomes easy to eliminate out of these. So let's say if I asked you, okay, create 10 different designs and then choose one out of these, it is much easier rather than creating rather than choosing from 2 or 3 different designs. Why it is easy? Because you have plenty of options, and while exploring those plenty of options, you have tried to explore all different possibilities of your problem statement. If you remember Infinite War, or the end game, you can say, where Doctor Strange went into the future and figure out all possible ways to defeat Thanos, and he derived one out of these, right? So that's what we are doing here. We need to ideate, we need to do ideation, and we need to derive at least hundreds of ideas, and that's why your low fidelity prototype comes into the picture. So when I say, okay, design a login page, when you go ahead and design a high fidelity one, it will take a lot of time to define the colors, to define the UI elements, to define the actual positionings of the objects. That is going to take a lot of time. But if I say, okay, design a layout using low fidelity wireframes, you would be simply doodling out, okay, this is going to be my 2 input fields, and this would be a button, and I'd be having a logo here and some sort of title here. I'd be doing next iteration. Okay, I don't want both of the fields in single go. I want only one single input field. When user fills in there, I'll go to the next screen where I'll be having another input field, and then I'd go to third screen where my user would be logged in, right? So you can figure out different of ways. You can figure out plenty of ideas just by doodling them on the paper pen, using like paper pencil or in Figma or wherever you want to do. But the key factor here is you need to ideate at least hundreds of solutions for one particular problem statement. And now the fourth step is, I guess this color might not be much visible here. Let me choose this blue one. So what is fourth stage? Test. And it is kind of, one of the important step in double diamond design process, or you can say in any of the design processes. Why testing is important? Because until and unless you are doing a proper testing of your hundreds of ideas, you will not able to derive one perfect solution for your users which people will love. And that's what, if you are not testing the solution, if you are not testing your ideas, then basically you are not solving the problem for the users, and then people will never love your application or your product. So what we have to do, we have to test our ideas, and again it is a converging process. So we explored a lot of ideas. Now again we are doing a focus oriented test. We are taking each and every idea and we are testing that particular idea against our problem. So by this, what we can do, we can drill down those hundreds of ideas and explore a best solution out of it, right? So this is our fourth step in this process. As you see on the screen, what we did, we are started with research, thousands of not thousands, but hundreds of different parts. You can literally do thousands if your problem statement is that much big, where let's say you want to achieve one of the goals. Let's say you want to have zero poverty, or like no one will be hungry. So if these are your goals, if your goal is that massive, definitely you need thousands of different ways to do research on it. If your goal is a simple thing, okay, I want to build a login screen and then I want to do research, in that case you can leverage all the past experience you have, all the past experience your users have, all the experience your colleagues have. Then you can do your own research, you can do user interviews, you can create user personas, and you can use any other technique. Like, you just have to explore hundreds of different ways to research one particular thing and collect the data as much as possible. Once you have collected the data, what we did, we analyzed that data, and out of that data we figure out a single source of information. So there is very slight difference between data and information. Data is something, a huge amount of the garbage around us, and out of that garbage we are picking out the gold, and that is what we are doing in the analysis, and that is what we are getting the information, right? So once we did the analysis, then what we are doing, we are ideating against that single source of information. So we started with 100 different sources of information, then we narrowed it down to one single source of information, and then again we are taking that one single source of information and we are ideating against that to derive the solutions. And when we have ideated almost hundreds of different ideas, or tens or 20s of low fidelity doodles or wireframes, then you can test those each and every designs against your users or against your problem statement, and then you can derive one solution out of it, okay, which is going to be again like even we did all this research, even we did all this analysis, we did ideation, still we can never say the solution which we have derived is going to be a perfect solution, because with the time needs of the user is definitely going to change, the environment where they would be using your product is definitely going to change, and that's why your solution has to be also updated, right? So even after researching, analyzing, ideating and testing, it is not always the case that we have a perfect solution. Retry with more focused problems. Even after researching, analyzing, ideating and testing, it is not always the case that we have a perfect solution in our hands. Designing an experience for users is always a never-ending process, right? So it is never going to end. If you have like I'm not sure if you have read or not, but if you see artwork, or an artwork is never ever a final artwork. If you ask to any of the artist, he will never say, okay, this is what my final painting is. Still it can be iterated, it can be refined in minor details, and it can be a never ending process. And that's why we create different drafts of this. These are different drafts, and we are doing draftsmanship, and out of those we are picking one particular thing which suits the situation for that particular point of time. So that's why designing the experience or designing a product is never ending process, right? If you take example, let's say one Apple phone or iPhone or any Android phone might give different experience to different people based on their values, their needs, and that's why retry, because this entire process has to be reiterated. So you need to do it again and again, as long as your product is active in the market, right? So I hope this process is kind of helpful for you. This video is going to be helpful for you in designing digital or physical products, and the user experience behind this. I hope you would like this video, and be sure to comment out your doubts or your reactions or your questions on this, and also let me know in the comments which design process you do prefer and why. And be sure to share, subscribe, and like this video. Thank you guys for watching this video. Stay tuned for all the fantastic videos on design.